The room was sterile, an expanse of glass and chrome that glistened under the harsh lights of the Galactic Confederation's embassy. Captain Jake "Bear" McCaffrey stood at attention, his broad shoulders squared, and his eyes fixed on the holographic projection of the Council's representative, a figure made entirely of flickering blue light, its form shifting like liquid. Around him, the other members of Earth's military high command were seated, though none spoke. McCaffrey's silence was deliberate, but there was tension in every muscle as he waited for the alien to speak. "You've had your chance to present your case, human," the voice said, deep and resonant, yet tinged with an unmistakable condescension. "But you must understand, your planet's continued defiance of the galactic order is intolerable. The time has come for you to submit to the Confederation's authority, or we will enforce it. Your primitive species cannot be allowed to remain outside our domain." The words hit the room like a slap. McCaffrey's gaze didn't waver. He had heard it all before. The same arrogance, the same dismissiveness that humanity had come to expect from those who considered themselves the galaxy's elite. He knew what they thought of Earth, a fragile, chaotic speck, insignificant in the face of their ancient civilizations and superior technology. They didn't see the people of Earth. They saw nothing more than a problem to be solved. "Your ultimatum is noted, but it will be ignored," McCaffrey replied, his voice low but unwavering. He let the words hang in the air for a moment before adding, "We've fought for survival on this planet for centuries. We won't just roll over because you tell us to." There was a pause, and then the alien figure's eyes narrowed. If a being of light could even have eyes. "You misunderstand, human. This is not a negotiation. Your world's defenses are no match for our fleet. Your people no match for our armies. This is a final opportunity for you to comply without further bloodshed. Submit or face annihilation." McCaffrey's hand clenched at his side, but he forced himself to remain calm. The Council thought Earth's military was weak. They believed the technological gaps between their forces and humanity's were insurmountable. But what the Council didn't know, and what they would soon learn, was that Earth's true strength wasn't in technology. It was in its people, and in the most remote, forgotten corners of the planet, Earth had soldiers unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. The Council representative made a gesture, and the hologram flickered again. "You have 1 hour to respond, human. Your time is running out." The connection cut abruptly, leaving McCaffrey standing in the silence of the high-tech chamber. He could hear his heartbeat in his ears, a rhythmic reminder of the gravity of what was to come. The room seemed to close in around him, the weight of command settling heavily on his shoulders. Beside him, Sergeant Carlos "Razor" Ramirez shifted, the sharp click of his boots echoing in the stillness. The sniper's face was unreadable, but McCaffrey knew what the young man was thinking. Ramirez had seen the Council's arrogance firsthand when they'd invaded one of Earth's mining colonies just months earlier. The message had been the same: submit or die. Earth's resistance had cost them, but it had also made it clear that humanity was not to be underestimated. "Bear," Ramirez said quietly, "we're not going to just lie down and let them stomp on us, are we?" McCaffrey's lips tightened. "Not while I'm breathing." He turned to the group of officers standing around the table. "We've got one shot at this, and I don't plan to waste it." Lieutenant Michael "Shark" O'Connell, the youngest of the group but already a rising star in Earth's military, spoke up next. "We've got nothing to lose by taking the fight to them, right? We're outnumbered, outgunned, but we've got the terrain. If we hit them in the jungles, where they least expect it." McCaffrey nodded, his mind already racing. "Exactly. The jungles of Earth are a different beast. They've got tech, but they don't understand what we can do in our own backyard. We'll use the environment as our weapon." Private Tyrone "Ghost" Jenkins, who'd been quiet until now, shifted his weight and spoke up from the far side of the room. "We've been training in those jungles for years, Captain. The alien tech won't be a problem if we know where to hit it, and I've got some ideas about how we can use their own devices against them." McCaffrey turned his gaze on the young soldier, the only one who could move through the wilds like a ghost. Jenkins had a knack for working with electronics. He was a whiz at reverse engineering, and his ideas had saved their hides more than once. The captain respected the man's ingenuity. He would need it now more than ever. Good. I want a full report on your ideas. We're going to hit them where they think they're safe. The room fell silent again, the weight of the decision hanging in the air. The council had underestimated humanity, and now it was up to McCaffrey and his team to make sure they understood why that was a mistake they would regret. They had the training, the instincts, and the knowledge of their home turf. The aliens had technology, but it was not the technology that would win the war. McCaffrey's voice broke the silence again, steady and resolute. Prepare yourselves. We're going to show the galaxy what Earth can do. As the officers began to move toward the door, McCaffrey felt the familiar surge of determination in his chest. The battle had only just begun, but the outcome wasn't in the hands of the Galactic Confederation. It was in the hands of the soldiers who knew how to fight for their home. And if the aliens wanted to fight, McCaffrey knew exactly where they'd find it. The silence after the transmission ended was thick, heavy, a void where words failed to fill the space. McCaffrey stared at the dark screen, feeling the weight of the alien ultimatum pressed down on him. The Galactic Confederation's envoy, a being of alien energy and light, had made its demands clear. Earth must surrender, or face the full force of the Confederation's military might. In their eyes, humanity was a primitive species, a nuisance, hardly worth the time it took to crush. Do they not understand what no means? Ramirez muttered under his breath, his voice like gravel as his eyes narrowed, his anger barely contained. The young sniper's face was set in a hard mask, but his jaw clenched in frustration. The thought of yielding to the aliens, of letting them dictate Earth's future, was something that sat like a weight in his gut. McCaffrey's eyes flicked to his team. Each of them, in their own way, understood what was at stake, even if the aliens did not. He had seen how humanity fought for every inch of survival, not just on Earth's battlefields, but in every corner of its wildest terrain. From the jungles of South America to the forests of the Pacific Northwest, the land was a mirror of Earth's people, untamed, stubborn, fierce. Their arrogance will be their downfall, McCaffrey said quietly, voice steady but grim. He leaned against the table, his broad hands gripping the edge. They don't know what they're facing. Michael Shark O'Connell, ever the optimist but always pragmatic, spoke next. You think they'll just fold when we show them the jungle? I mean, they've got tech that's light years ahead of ours. Their tech won't help them when they're in the thick of it, McCaffrey responded, turning to face O'Connell. This isn't a battle of gadgets. This is about survival. The kind of survival we've been mastering since before any of these galactic empires came into being. O'Connell's eyes flashed with understanding. The young officer's mind had always operated in the gray areas, finding the solutions that others overlooked. It was why he had been chosen to lead his own unit in combat missions. He was quick to adapt, to think outside the box, even when the odds seemed impossible. But it was Sergeant Razor Ramirez who spoke next, his voice a low rumble, filled with hard-earned wisdom. They'll think they're invincible in their ships, in their armor. But out here, he gestured toward the wide windows overlooking the sprawling military base, they're nothing. In the jungles, we're gods, and they're prey. McCaffrey smiled grimly. Exactly. We're going to show them why humanity isn't some afterthought. We're going to make them regret every word they said. At the back of the room, Private Tyrone Ghost Jenkins stood with his arms crossed, his eyes flickering between the team. Ghost had always been the quiet one, the man who slipped through the shadows when the others couldn't see, who moved with a precision that bordered on eerie. His reputation as a master of stealth and sabotage had earned him his place with McCaffrey's team. He didn't need to speak often, but when he did, it was always deliberate. Their tech isn't perfect, Ghost said, breaking his silence. We can find a way to reverse engineer it. We can turn their weapons, their sensors, against them. All we need is time. McCaffrey nodded. That's why we need to hit them hard, fast, and in places they never saw coming. The jungle will be our ally. We're going to show them that Earth's warriors don't need fancy tech to win. We've got something much more powerful, the will to fight. It was then that the doors to the command room slid open, and in stepped General Richard Iron Hardy, the commanding officer of the military forces stationed at the base. Hardy was a towering figure, his age marked in the silver of his hair and the sharpness of his eyes. but his presence radiated authority. He had seen wars come and go, and his experience on Earth's front lines had made him a man of few words and much action. "Captain McCaffrey," General Hardy said, his voice low but authoritative, "are you telling me you planned on sending your men into the jungle to take on a fleet of alien invaders? Are you really going to rely on guerrilla tactics when we've got satellites, drones, and—" "We've got the element of surprise," McCaffrey interrupted. "We've got the terrain. We've got the will. And that's something these aliens won't understand until it's too late." Hardy's eyes bored into McCaffrey's. The general was a man who valued strategy above all, but even he couldn't ignore the growing sense of desperation in his heart. The alien threat was real, their power overwhelming. Yet here was McCaffrey, unyielding, unafraid, a beacon of defiance against the impossible. "I've heard the rumors," Hardy said finally, his voice softening just a fraction, "about your team, about the jungle. But I still don't believe it'll be enough." McCaffrey's gaze never faltered. "Then you'll soon see what Earth's warriors can do when they fight for their home." Hardy nodded slowly, as though weighing the gravity of the situation. "I'll authorize your mission. But I want results, McCaffrey. Earth doesn't have time to wait for miracles." McCaffrey's response was simple. "We'll give them one hell of a miracle." The team filed out of the room, their minds focused, their bodies already shifting into the mindset of war. McCaffrey walked alongside Ramirez, O'Connell, and Jenkins, each step heavier than the last. The world outside was on the brink of disaster. Earth's fate rested on their shoulders. As they made their way to the base's armory to prepare, McCaffrey's thoughts were already turning. They needed more than weapons. They needed the land itself, the raw, untamed power of Earth's wilderness. It was the only advantage they had left. "Get ready," McCaffrey said to his team as they stepped into the shadows of the armory. "We're going to make sure the Confederation knows who they're messing with." They had no idea just how much Earth was capable of, and McCaffrey intended to make sure they never forgot it. The team moved into action. The jungle was waiting. The jungle was alive, pulsing with the rhythm of ancient life as McCaffrey's boots sank into the damp earth. The air was thick with humidity, a blanket that clung to his skin and weighed down his every movement. Behind him, the rest of the team moved silently, their forms barely visible through the towering trees and vines that seemed to close in around them. Every step they took was calculated, every movement deliberate. They were far from the prying eyes of satellites and drones. Here, in the heart of Earth's wilderness, they were invisible. McCaffrey glanced over his shoulder at Ramirez, who was scanning the dense foliage with a practiced eye. The sniper was in his element, calm, focused. His hand gripped the rifle stock like an extension of his own body. No one knew the art of camouflage and quiet death better than Ramirez. "How far are we from the target?" McCaffrey asked, his voice barely a whisper, swallowed by the thick green canopy overhead. "Less than half a click," Ramirez replied, his voice just as low. "They don't know we're coming. We'll keep it that way," McCaffrey said, as much to himself as to the team. They were deep in the jungle now. No roads, no trails, just the unyielding terrain that Earth's soldiers knew better than anyone else. The Galactic forces had landed on Earth's surface with the assumption that their superior technology would make the conquest of the planet a swift and easy task. But they were wrong. The terrain, with its dense jungles, thick forests, and unforgiving mountains, was a battleground the aliens couldn't fathom. They had relied on their high-tech weapons and drones, but Earth's military, and particularly McCaffrey's Jungle Special Forces, had something that couldn't be bought: experience. The alien forces were sprawling out of their landing zones now, searching for pockets of resistance, ready to deploy their overwhelming might. But McCaffrey's team was not about to let them find it. The aliens had never fought in this environment, never had to contend with the wilderness that Earth's soldiers had made their home. McCaffrey's mind raced, the memories of the Council's ultimatum still fresh in his thoughts. Their words echoed like a death sentence: submit, or be wiped from the stars. But there was no submitting. Not now. Not when humanity's future was on the line. He had been in too many fights to know that surrender was never the answer. They had a plan, and it was a damn good one. The jungle, a weapon in itself, would turn the tide. They reached the clearing where the alien base was set up, an outpost on the edge of the jungle, a mix of sleek metallic structures surrounded by high-tech defense barriers. The aliens' arrogance was obvious. They thought they were safe here, on Earth's very soil, unchallenged and untouchable. But McCaffrey knew better. They were vulnerable, and they didn't even realize it. "Ghost," McCaffrey whispered, turning to Jenkins, who was already moving to the side, his presence almost imperceptible. The young man was a shadow in the foliage, moving like a whisper through the jungle's undergrowth. "We need those alien communications down. Take out their relays." Jenkins didn't respond, just nodded, and disappeared into the trees. McCaffrey trusted Ghost with his life. The man had been with him through every mission, and his uncanny ability to infiltrate and disable enemy tech was invaluable. He had turned the tide in more than one firefight by simply slipping past the enemy and dismantling their systems. The team continued their approach, staying low and silent, moving like specters through the dark, oppressive jungle. As they neared the perimeter of the base, McCaffrey signaled for them to stop. His eyes scanned the area. Alien patrols, armed with energy rifles, wandered the perimeter. They were armed to the teeth, but they were out of place. It wasn't just the alien technology that made them formidable. It was their confidence. The same confidence that had led them to believe Earth was an easy conquest. But they didn't understand what it was to be human, to fight for something greater than themselves. They didn't understand the depth of the will to survive that ran through the veins of every soldier on Earth. McCaffrey clenched his jaw. "Razor, take out the first patrol." Quietly. Ramirez didn't hesitate. He dropped to a knee, his rifle raised, his scope already zeroed in on the nearest target. His finger squeezed the trigger in a smooth, controlled motion. The shot was a whisper, the alien soldier dropping without a sound. The second patrol member barely had time to react before Ramirez's second shot sent him crumpling to the ground. McCaffrey motioned for the team to move. They were in. The jungle was their ally. It hid them, it sheltered them, it guided them with its ancient wisdom. The alien forces, with all their advanced technology, couldn't see them, couldn't track them through the thick canopy above and the dense underbrush below. McCaffrey's team was like ghosts, vanishing into the landscape as soon as they were seen. They reached the heart of the alien base, the command center, where the bulk of their operations were being directed. McCaffrey's pulse quickened. They were getting closer to the enemy's heart, and the tension in the air was palpable. They had no time to waste. "Ghost, you're up," McCaffrey whispered, his gaze intense. Jenkins moved like a shadow, slipping through the base's perimeter and toward the communications tower. McCaffrey could only hope that Jenkins could complete his task before the aliens realized what was happening. The seconds stretched, each one feeling like an eternity. The mission was dangerous, nearly impossible, but McCaffrey had no doubt in his mind. They had one shot, and they would take it. Suddenly, a soft crackle broke through their comms, followed by Jenkins' voice. "Communications down. They're blind." McCaffrey's heart gave a steady beat of relief. It was working. The aliens were now deaf to the outside world, and that was exactly what they needed. "Move in," McCaffrey ordered. The team surged forward, their movements synchronized, honed by countless hours of training. They were a machine, fluid, unstoppable. The jungle had prepared them for this moment. And now, they were ready to make their stand. The Council might have underestimated humanity. They might have believed their technology was unbeatable. But Earth soldiers, born of a land that knew only survival, had something that could not be measured in calculations or specs. McCaffrey knew it, and soon the aliens would too. This fight, this war, was far from over. As they stormed the command center, McCaffrey's voice rang out through the chaos, a rallying cry that would echo for the ages. "Show them what Earth is made of." The command center was chaos. The air hummed with the low growl of alien machinery, and overhead lights flickered in warning as the team stormed through the corridors. McCaffrey could feel his pulse racing, but there was no fear, only the sharp focus of a man who knew exactly what needed to be done. "Keep it tight," he barked, his voice carrying over the crackle of their comms. "We don't have long before they realize what's happening." Ramirez moved with deadly precision, his rifle raised and eyes scanning for any signs of movement. His expression was grim, but his hands were steady, his instincts razor-sharp. Shark and Ghost were already splitting off, their silent movements like well-rehearsed choreography. Every step, every motion, spoke of years of training and experience in Earth's harshest environments. As they neared the heart of the command center, McCaffrey's thoughts flickered back to the meeting with the Galactic Council. The ultimatum had been delivered coldly, as if the fate of Earth had already been decided. The Confederation's demands were simple: submit or face annihilation. But that had never been an option. They'd underestimated humanity, as most invaders had before them. They thought the jungle was just trees and mud, not the home of warriors who could strike with the stealth of predators and the precision of an ancient, unbroken legacy. McCaffrey glanced back at his team. Ramirez was crouched low, scanning for sentries. Shark was pulling up a map on his wrist device, tracking their progress through the alien compound. Jenkins, Ghost, was already slipping into the heart of the base, where the Central Command would be. McCaffrey had no doubt that he would complete his task. The kid had always been a ghost in the wind, impossible to catch, impossible to predict. Ready? Shark's voice crackled over the comms. Now, McCaffrey commanded. In an instant they converged, moving with military precision as they breached the core of the command center. Alien personnel, squad leaders, communication officers, and tech specialists scattered in every direction, panic flashing in their alien eyes. But it was too late. They had lost control, and McCaffrey's team had them trapped. Secure the perimeter, McCaffrey ordered, as his team fanned out, weapons aimed but not firing. The aliens' weaponry was nothing to sneeze at, but they were out of their element. Earth's soldiers knew how to fight with what they had, and here, with the aliens scrambling to regain control, it was Earth that held the upper hand. McCaffrey's eyes were fixed on the central console, where the alien command leader, a towering figure composed of shifting energy, was attempting to override the station's systems. The commander's form was insubstantial, more a collection of electromagnetic energy than anything solid, but its intelligence was clear. You have no idea what you're doing. The alien's voice boomed through the command center, a deep, resonant sound that vibrated the walls. This is your last chance, human. You are outmatched. Submit, and perhaps we will spare your people. McCaffrey didn't flinch. The only thing we're submitting to is the land we stand on. The alien form pulsed angrily, a deep thrum of energy filling the room as it lashed out at the team's equipment. But Earth's soldiers were prepared. Ghost had already planted a disruptor pulse in the base's heart. The alien tech scrambled as its systems went dark one by one. The alien forces on the ground were no longer receiving orders. McCaffrey's voice was cold. Your technology doesn't mean a damn thing here. The alien commander's form flickered, its energy coiling, almost like a physical reaction to the failure of its plan. You cannot fight an empire, human. This planet will be erased, and your species will be nothing but a forgotten footnote in galactic history. It was a statement of utter disdain, a final verdict. But McCaffrey could see the cracks now. The alien leader was losing its confidence. It had underestimated the resilience of a species that had clawed its way to the top of its own food chain, a species that had survived countless cataclysms and yet continued to push forward. McCaffrey knew Earth wasn't just fighting for survival. They were fighting for everything they had ever been, everything they were. You have no idea what Earth's warriors are made of, McCaffrey said, his voice low and unyielding. We've been fighting to survive since the dawn of our existence. We'll survive this too, and we'll make sure you never forget that. The alien commander recoiled, its form flickering once more, its energy pulsing like a staccato drumbeat of frustration. You dare challenge the might of the Confederation? We dare, McCaffrey replied firmly. And we're not backing down. Behind him, Razor's steady voice cut through the tension. The perimeter is secure, Captain. No more surprises. McCaffrey didn't take his eyes off the alien leader. His team had done what they needed to do. The command center was in disarray, the aliens' once unassailable position crumbling. The Confederation had thought themselves invincible. But here, in the heart of the jungle, humanity had turned the tide. The alien leader's form trembled. Then, In a burst of electromagnetic distortion, it vanished, its last words reverberating through the room like a distant storm. "This is not over." McCaffrey's lips tightened into a hard smile. "It never is." The team gathered around him, the weight of the mission settling into their bones. They had done it. The battle for Earth's future was far from over. But for the first time, it was clear to McCaffrey that the Galactic Confederation had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated humanity, believing their technology and power were enough to crush a species born of the Earth's relentless struggle. McCaffrey's voice was steady as he gave the order. "Get to the extraction point. We've got more work to do." As they filed out of the command center, the echoes of the battle they had fought lingered in the air. The jungle around them was a silent witness to the defiance that had risen from the heart of Earth. The aliens had seen a glimpse of what humanity was capable of, but McCaffrey knew it was just the beginning. The Council had made their decision, but Earth was not finished yet, and when it was over, they would learn what it meant to face the true might of the human spirit.